Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us for our session today, Early Stage Entrepreneurs, How to Narrow in on Your Niche. My name is Daniel Nzueto, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's session. If this is your first time attending one of our workshops, let me provide some context on Startup. Startup accelerates the growth of the LGBTQ plus community to drive its economic empowerment, building a world where every LGBTQ plus entrepreneur has equal access to lead, succeed, and shape the workforce of the future. I'm excited to introduce our host, Rachel from Woken, who will be leading today's session. Woken provides coaching, tools, and guidance on all things career, including career mindset, accountability, networking, interviewing, overall career advancement, and more. Rachel, thanks so much for being back with us today. The floor is yours.
Amazing. Welcome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to stop monitoring the people in the waiting room and I'll let you do that. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to get my screen going. You guys can see this all okay?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. All right. And I have my chat open as well, so feel free to pop in questions along the way, and we'll definitely have time at the end for questions too. Okay, we are going to just dive right in. So we're going to talk about product-led, testing, marketing-led testing, and tell you a little bit about my journey and see what you guys can learn from that. Before I do that, I'll give you like the quickest background on me. I realized I didn't put a slide in there for that. I started out, I was at Goldman Sachs, and then I went to Bridgewater Associates, which is a hedge fund. And I actually was doing sort of informal customer discovery alongside of my job for years. And I was just informally helping people with their careers. And then eventually I got coaching training through NYU and certified through the International Coach Federation. And then essentially started my business at that point. And I've done coaching through a few other organizations as well. And I also did a tech MBA at NYU Stern. So I learned a lot of early stage entrepreneurship, concepts from different sort of programs and incubators and boot camps and all the things you could imagine through NYU. And that was sort of when we were getting started. And it's been now 6.5 years that I've been working on Woken and bootstrapping Woken. So I'm going to, again, share some learnings with you. And hopefully this will be, at the very least, just good food for thought to get the wheels turning for you all in what you're doing. So I'm going to dive right in. So this is just sort of my journey, and I'm just going to sort of very quickly tell you a little bit about what it is we did, and then we'll go into some concepts that you can apply. But as I mentioned, I was doing very deep customer discovery on the side of my jobs for years. And I didn't know that I was doing customer discovery, but if you're not already familiar with that term, essentially you're running conversations with people that you think could be your customer. And there's a very specific way to do that. So if you haven't already Googled it, there's some great resources and we could talk more about it, but asking open-ended questions to learn what are their actual pain points and connect the dots and try to find patterns across different types of customers. So I was sort of doing this and helping people with their career before I really knew that that was customer discovery. So I started realizing the challenges and the pain points that customers actually didn't even realize they were having, right? So that's, I guess, lesson number one is sometimes people tell you what they need and other times they don't know what they need. So you want to understand which camp you're in terms of what you're selling. But I started really learning over the years, what were people really facing in their job search? And I started to try to solve those. I started to build out some, brief kind of resources and Google Docs and things like that. So that's really where it all began. I remember my first moment of even really building out some worksheets. I mean, I started building like resume templates because people were sort of asking for that. But then I had a friend who was working at a university and she was like, can you come have a booth at this like job fair? And, I built out worksheets. So I started to essentially productize, right? So I had a lot of knowledge and then it started to like, I would write it down. So I built these worksheets. Now, many years later, these worksheets are into software, but it really just started with a Google Doc that became a printout at a table at a fair, a job fair. And then I started to digitize, right? So I used Typeform. If you're not familiar with Typeform, it's basically just a way to offer kind of like a quiz. And so I started building a career assessment into Typeform. From there, I actually had a coach who I remember I was meeting with my first business coach that I ever had. And I was like, I have so much guidance, from the past 5 years, I could write it all down into a book. And she was like, write it down. And I was like, okay. At the time, I wasn't working, or I don't even know, I might have had a part-time job. So I literally took like 3 weeks and I just brain dumped it. And now we also print and sell that book. And so just writing down your knowledge is one of very quick things that you can do to, that could become a small little PDF, it could be an ebook, it could be a bigger book, it could be any number of things, worksheets. So just documenting your knowledge is a great like MVP. And as you can notice, I led a lot with products because I had that expertise. And we are going to talk about finding your niche, but sometimes, there is the difference between what do I know? And of course, who can I help? And so at the very least, I find that early days when you're trying to figure out who you want to help, you also want to start building these MVPs and these scrappy products that are feasible for you to build to see who it attracts, right? So there's product-led growth and there's sort of this marketing-led growth. I was very product-led because I just personally loved to invent and build, right? And that was where I leaned. So you have to know your strengths as well, right? And so then I started giving some talks, like workshops. I did some in person. I started to do some digitally, but I started to build my expertise into slides, into a talk, basically, right? And so I started to figure out like who and where and what organizations might have me, right? And that's another great marketing tactic to figure out like what organizations want to host you and who is their audience and where can I get in front of that audience by way of another organization and get in front of people through a workshop or a webinar on your areas of expertise. So I started doing that. And then I started building out a software. I actually thought for a while I would lead with the book. And then I was like, wait, technology, exists. So I totally pivoted my focus and I really leaned into building software. And you may or may not be building software and you don't have to, but I'll show you kind of our journey of how we did that. So we started with a clickable prototype. So we put some designs that were really just like images and we made them a little clickable, meaning if you clicked a button, it would show you what other page you would see, but you really couldn't use it. It was just designs. Then what we did from there, this is my, claim to fame. What I love is we went to Google Sheets and I love Google Sheets, but we basically removed all the cell borders and I had a designer and she sort of created, basically a software platform where, if I wanted people to do certain career activities, we would give them, different tabs, which essentially served as activities that imagine, now we do that in a software, but they were different workspaces. So if you were researching career goals or doing networking or, reflecting on your career, whatever it is I was helping somebody to do, we made these Google Sheets tabs all for that. And that is what helped me to start proving my concept, getting testimonials, tracking the usage of this tool, measuring retention, figuring out like what should happen in conjunction, texting, emailing, phone calls. And we did start charging for that, which is crazy because Google Sheets, isn't charging you. It just takes time to build it out. So we started, getting that proof of concept that people wanted to pay for this type of help. Sorry, I realize I gave you all kind of no context, but what Woken is essentially we're a career coaching company. And I know Danny sort of mentioned that, but you could see what we're alluding to here. We do help people with their careers and a lot of different career coaching type things. So that's the nature of what it is we do. And so after we had the Google Sheets, again, we started proving all that and we started getting revenue. And then I always used revenue to try to fund the next version. So from there, we actually built a software. I honestly was very scrappy. I leveraged, at the time, I had a little funding from a very small competition and a small fellowship and a grant. So we had like, I think 2 undergrad interns and maybe 1 grad intern, 1 or 2 graduate interns, and we built a software plus a designer. And, I found scrappy ways, and we could talk about how to find the right help and how to pay them. But, we built a software, and I will tell you, this software was pretty shitty, but it functioned. And again, we still kept getting the revenue because people, they know what they need help with. So once you start, doing the positioning and sort of branding it and marketing it, people will be very forgiving in the beginning of those early products, right? So they knew what they needed support with, and it was less about, is our tool perfect, but what is it and what is it going to help me achieve? And then we eventually redesigned and redeveloped that entire software, and we've now been on that version for over 3 years. We eventually added more products, texting and emailing, coaching, Zoom calls, group coaching, group co-working, and we do so many different types of workshops and other types of marketing at this point too. The other thing I can add to the list that we've done is actually just our website, where we have quizzes, we have downloadables, we have freebies, we have videos, we have blogs. So even things like that are all things you can just create and put onto your website. And so, again, you're just scrappily testing, what can I do and what can I build and who's that going to resonate with? So this is all kind of that product-led growth, right? And the evolution of our story. So hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to keep going. I hope this, again, starts to get the wheels turning a little bit. So we're going to transition a little bit more into like the traditional sort of marketing concepts. In our earliest days of marketing, right, we needed to differentiate assumptions, right? Because there's going to be a moment where you're like assuming things about your customers, right? And so, for example, I used to say like, oh, college students and professionals, they all need the same thing. They need to clarify their direction. They need to do upskilling. They need to do networking. They need to do job search. And then when I did customer discovery in the right way, I realized, college students, they just want like a secure job. They want any job quickly. They care about like the reputation and the stereotype of how this looks and sounds. And they may be choosing things for kind of not the wrong reasons, but they haven't really experienced it yet. Professionals feel these pain points when they hate their jobs and they know what it is they want to do next. So that was a differentiator. And it was such a nuance that I wouldn't have realized unless I went through formal customer discovery. And I don't have like too many slides on exactly customer discovery. And I'm sure Start Out has a lot of sessions around that, but there's a ebook and a PDF. I think there's a free download, or maybe it's like $10, and it's called Talking to Humans. So if you need to learn more about customer discovery, check out that resource because it's really helpful. So from there, right, we started just testing assumptions, like more quickly than you want to. Like I literally just started posting on my personal social media accounts, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And I know it's like really vulnerable, but I just started trying out like language. Like this is where it's copywriting, it's positioning. It's like, do you have these sorts of problems? And it's like almost as if you're kind of writing an ad. Like, how would you resonate with somebody? What do you think they're facing? And just start writing. And you're going to figure out, like, you're going to measure what's getting the clicks, what's getting the tractions, and what words, what phrases are really resonating with people. And you want to give them an ask. You want to see who opts in. You want to give a healthy level of friction. So like I would post on Facebook and see who liked, who commented, and I would say, send me an email if whatever, right? And by the way, you can do this not just on your personal, you could join Facebook groups. I mean, sometimes they don't allow you to be promotional, but if you frame it as like research, you could see what happens that way. So give that healthy level of friction. Don't make it too easy to get in touch with you. Just like a healthy level of like, did they take effort to go out of their way to get in touch with me about this thing? And thus, do they have a problem that they might, if they don't take effort, it's like, are they going to pay to solve this problem, right? Having a type form or an intake form would be great because you can get their name, their email, and the personas, of who they are. You can sort of track demographics a little bit, or the psychographics. So I'll give you an example. Right now, we do offer a free initial call. That's part of our sales funnel. But for that call, we have a Calendly, and that Calendly asks a few pretty critical questions. That's a great way to digitize and ask the right things. And then on the back end, you can start analyzing, what are people saying? Like you can sort of assess what are your key needs, or, even location, or say you're going B2B, size of company. What are the key things that can help you get to know the factors, the traits about that customer? And, a Calendly form could be a great way to get those questions answered and analyze it, as you start to take initial calls. And then I just started offering services basically, and I started actually offering coaching for free. And then eventually, when I got enough people and testimonials, I started to charge, as even though I didn't really feel ready yet, but I did. And we could talk about price points and things like that. But I just started at a lower price point. And coaching is one of those things where over the course of time, you build up clientele and expertise and resources, and you can charge more over time. So that was the way I did, sort of the pricing. But there's a lot more we could talk about with pricing. The other thing is, like, I always led with design. Our website always looked more fancy than we, had anything ready. You could have a wait list. You can offer something even before it's built. You can say, sign up on this email, before you before you have something built out, just to see who is opting in and things like that. So just don't forget the smoke and mirror tactics. Don't wait until you have something built. Just sort of try it faster than you think, and it can all say one thing, and in behind the scenes, we're going to catch up. The minute you get your paying client, you'll figure it out and you'll build it, right? I mean, that's one way to do it, but just be careful of waiting too long to offer something. Yeah, and the best way to learn, right, is just to start offering it, right? And yeah, keeping in mind the psychographic versus the demographic, because it's funny, like today, our clients, we coach people between ages 20 and 70 across so many roles and industries, across so many locations. But if somebody asked me, I could give you our average persona. But I always say, for us, it's the psychographic, which means they're ready to make a job change. They don't know what job they want, and they don't know how to figure out what job they want. So like, to me, that's more of just how you're feeling versus a role title. So just be careful. How are you defining your person, your customer? And it may not always just be like age and location and things like that. Okay, I'm going to keep going, and I'm paying attention. If you have questions in the chat, do let me know. So this was one of our earliest slides. And if you don't already have something like this, absolutely flesh it out. It's a good thought exercise. And even today, I have versions of this that are a little more updated, but they're kind of all fleshed out in like a Google sheet. But you want to think about, like, who is your person, right? What do they look like? And that can be the demographics, but what are their pain points? What are their goals? What are their motivations? What are their unmet needs? So if you haven't already done an exercise like this is just a framework. Feel free to take something like this and start applying it to your own. And I could even dig up some of our more recent ones and show you those. But this was the early days, right, as we were getting started. And now I'm tempted to bring that up, but maybe I could find that at the end for you guys. And so I won't go into this in super great detail, but again, this is something you want to apply to who do I think my different archetypes or personas are, what are their different pain points, and literally give it quotes. Like, what would they be saying, like physically, words and phrases out of their mouth, because you can just regurgitate that in your website and all that good stuff, right? I keep a very long list of the copy of what am I constantly hearing and what can we then reflect back? You know what I mean? You want to speak their language. This is another one of those early slides, right? So give them a name. Who are they? Maybe their job, their age, their quotes of what it is they're saying. And again, there's different use cases, right? So people that are unsure, those are, pivoters. As you can see, we have so many use cases, whether they're grad student or they're employed or they're unemployed, or, things like that. So it can look a few ways, but, try to flesh out your top one or two or three, personas, and it's going to help so much to then start measuring and testing and getting in the right places and spaces. Anyway, that's that, right? Okay. Okay, let me look at this question. So, do the archetypes come from the things we're hearing from our research? Yes. Some element is your current assumptions that you're going to test. And when you say research, yes, you're going to do customer discovery, and you're going to try to, like, honestly just start getting out there faster than you think. If you have a website, if you're posting in different groups, if you're trying to get people to reach out to you, who's booking the calls. So it's a little bit of like, here's what I think. It's a little bit of like what's happening based on what I'm trying to do and who's reaching out to me, and who's resonating and who's getting in touch with me. And the customer discovery is huge as well. If you're like, I really need learnings fast, customer discovery, you can, they usually recommend honestly having about like 30 or so calls, but I've seen people do 50, 100 calls. Those might be excessive, but if you get like a volume of those customer discovery calls, it really makes sure that you're noticing the most biggest patterns, because the risk is like, did you see one situation and it was an anomaly? Like, you really want to try to build products and services that will be scalable to a group of people. So customer discovery is a great way to do that research. Of course, you can do competitive analysis and market research, online research, things like that. But honestly, customer discovery, talking to your people firsthand, open-ended questions, and then also just starting to get out there and literally seeing who gets in touch with you. And then you're going to test and measure and assess. And you may say, you know what? Persona A is really getting in touch with me. Persona B, like they clearly don't care about this. So you have to, it's a little bit of that assumption, and then you're going to see what happens in reality and truly test their effort. I mean, that is the number one way to see who actually cares to pay and solve this problem. There was one other thing I was going to say, and now I'm forgetting. Oh, when you do the customer discovery, you can actually hear their tone as well. Like, are people telling you that they've been searching for this service for a year? Are people telling you they paid for other services and it didn't work for them? Like, what effort and time have they already been taking to try to solve this? And like, you'll hear it if somebody's really frustrated or really in need, or if they're like apathetic and like just don't really care. So that's why those phone calls are so helpful. The Right It is a great book to consider for customer discovery. Great. Thank you. Amazing. Cool. So yeah, listen for the tone, listen for the patterns, do those phone calls. And eventually those phone calls will turn into like sales calls. But like for now, you just want to be very objective. And the point of the calls is really to test your assumptions, because, for example, I thought college students and professionals all had the same career challenges. You're going to think certain things, but it's like, let me test and try to literally separate my own assumptions from what's reality and what are the strongest needs and the strongest patterns. And like, you got to really listen for that in customer discovery. Okay. This is a fun exercise. This is sort of the adoption curve. If you haven't already seen or heard of this. So, you want to think about like, who are those innovators and early adopters, and then like later stage. So this is another way to think about, you may have like a dream sort of client list, but maybe those are future. So like for me, like we don't do a ton of B2B, but I actually get a few inbound leads. I personally think that that's going to be our future roadmap, and there's reasons for that. So part of this could be just business strategy. Like, do I want to go direct to consumer? Do I want to go B2B? But it's also like, who do I think would like hop on this bandwagon as soon as possible? Like, who is the greatest need and the burning need versus like, okay, this is a nice to have, right? And you want to separate, really who needs this, who's going to jump at this, even if it looks messy, even if it's not polished. We had clients that were very forgiving in the beginning when things didn't look nice. You know what I mean? Who are those people that they don't care what it looks like? They just need your help to solve this problem. So the adoption curve helps you think about, the need and the buying power and the strongest desire to solve this problem, right? So flesh out the curve, right? So again, these are all frameworks. You can literally draw this yourself and like try to apply this to your business. Unmet needs. So again, this was an early slide of mine, but this is another great way to think about what are the gaps, right? There's always a competitive analysis. There's always differentiators. So like, what are people doing today and what are they missing? That's the unmet needs, right? So for me, I saw that people didn't have a really good way to explore their affinities and their interests. There was a lot of like job search tools, but any sort of career assessment tool really wasn't very much interest-based. It was a little more skills-based and whatnot. So that was a gap I noticed. Learning and exploration. I mean, I saw a major gap between like people don't have a space and structure to explore and research and learn about careers in a guided, easy way. Guidance, right? Like people just didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to job search. Like, what steps do I take? And that's not to any fault of their own. No one ever taught us how to do this, but like, what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? Why do I do it? Networking, all that kind of stuff. They just didn't understand the guidance behind it. Accountability. This is my number one. People come to me because, they may not be putting in the time. They may not be putting in the volume to their job search. They're not doing enough. They're not staying on track. They're not staying organized. They're not structuring their time. All those things, is a main reason why people come to me. Technology, right? Career coaching was often like you hop on the phone, you hang up, you hope for the best. So I built out a software that complemented the process in between the coaching calls. That was a major gap. And incentives, a lot of coaches just wanted you to stay on forever, or, job boards just wanted you to apply. Like the incentives weren't aligned with the actual person, right? So that these were some of the gaps that I noticed. So definitely flesh out what are the main unmet needs that you think you're solving for, and it's going to make your life so much easier, because then on the website, if you resonate and you showcase that, then it's like, these are the things somebody wants solved. And if these are the things you're going to serve and give value around, this is how you start resonating, right? I also did a chart like this. And of course, there's a lot of, there's like the petal diagram, and there's so many different ways, the 2x2, there's different ways to show competitive differentiation and things like that. This was one that I did, and I feel like it's pretty straightforward, but basically columns, unmet needs, rows are the different players. And of course, you would be one of them. And then you're doing like the check and the X. And like in an ideal world, you have all the things, and maybe there's other competitors that have some of the things, but not all the things. And also price can be a differentiator. And I actually could add that to this list, because I do think we charge really affordably, which a lot of coaches don't. So that's another thing I could even add to the list, right? Price is a big one. And even the structure of pricing, right? Like there's so many models of how you could charge. Do people want to pay up front? Do people want an income share agreement? Do people want, any number of things, that could be an interesting way to think about differentiation as well. So yeah, you want to, again, start like proving, here's what I do. Here's some success stories. Here's a user journey, right? Like what is somebody going to go through in our program? What are the steps they would take? This is just one example of a real person, and we helped her clarify her path. We helped her decide on upskilling. We helped her improve her branding, navigate her job search and advance her career. So what is the journey you want somebody to go through, or what is the journey you think they want to go through? What is the guidance and the steps and the processes from start to finish that you offer? What is that journey that you go through with somebody? And by the way, you can even do user journeys like before, like what's the sales user journey and how are they getting to you? And also what's the customer journey, right? So you can think about all those things. And again, I just lead a lot with like, what is the actual product? Because I just think that's going to help you reflect that. And if you start speaking about what you do, why you do it, and the value, like I do think the right people come to find you. So I lead a little bit more with products than like the traditional marketing. And it's more about what is my product, my value, my offering, and then how do I just reflect that on a website or wherever, wherever you can physically reflect it, right? Go to market, right? Is such a hot phrase, but how are you going to get out there, right? This is important. So you just want to think about like physically, where are my people and how do I get into those places and spaces and conversations? Social media, podcasts, doing videos, doing events, webinars, ads, offering a free call, doing, talks, getting referrals. This was more, then you think about the keep. And this is more of a business model question. Like, how are you going to retain people? What does that look like? And how are you going to grow over the course of time? So the second and the third bucket is more future thinking. But the first column is like, where can I get out there and what can I start doing? And this is more of the actions around it, but you can also really push into what are the physical places? Like, what are the Facebook groups? What are the meetups? What are the events? What are the Slack groups? Like, where are they? Where are people talking? Where are people conversing? Where are people asking for help? Physically, like just insert yourself into these conversations. Like, even to this day, we will do community management where, say, people are commenting on a certain thread, we'll get in there, we'll answer questions. You know what I mean? So you just want to think about like physically, where are my people and how do I show up in the same places that they are, even if it's digital, right? That's how I would think about it. So let's see, lessons learned. Customer discovery is super critical. Separate target audience, finding the unsolved problems, listening to their tone, testing in small ways. Use a type form, use Calendly, offer a free call, use Google Sheets. Build something you can create today at no cost. Figure out those key metrics, because once you start to offer things, you want to track how's that going, right? What's their feedback? You know, all of the things you can measure to prove that you're having that value and start building out the success metrics. Yeah, we didn't learn that much from the clickable prototype, to be honest. So testing in a real way, like what, like for us, you know, was somebody using the Google Sheets? Like we tracked like time spent, like were they clicking on it? Were they using it? Were they opening our tool? You know, things like that, right? So where's the effort? And really test that. Yeah, in terms of web design, if you are building any digital products, just, you know, in the early days, you can get anyone who may not have the perfect expertise, because obviously people can be expensive. It's the right talent, but be careful. Like once you prove your concept, start building out, start finding the right people, because software can be expensive and time consuming to build. So you want the right people to do it. And advisory, you know, even just having mentors, advisors to look over your shoulder and just, you know, be an objective pair of eyes. Because even when you do get a team member on board, it's hard for you to always see, is what they're doing right, you know? So having advisory is helpful. User interviews, right? That's a great way to say, look at my product. Like, tell me what you think. How would you use this? What are your reactions? Like literally run user interviews while you build out your product to get feedback from customers while you build it out. What else? Yeah, don't just code. Optimizing for different screen sizes. I mean, this is very technical. And yeah, building in the analysis to the product. That's kind of fun. Like we actually have a pop-up that comes up throughout our software that's like, after you do a certain thing, it's like, how are you feeling on these 3 things? And they measure 1 to 10. So if you build in the analytics, you're actually going to measure their entire experience and their progress over the course of time, which is great. You know, so build in the feedback, build in the metrics, build in the analytics throughout. And also obviously qualitative feedback, have check-ins with people, especially in the early days. You know, I used to do like midway check-in, end of way check-in, have a phone call, have Google Forms, whatever it is, and periodically get that feedback. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, build, measure, learn. I mean, if there's any phrase, you know, the other thing I like to think about, yeah, with startups is just build, measure, learn is good, but the other way you could just think about it is just building and selling. That's all you're doing, really. But just be careful that you're not only building. You have to be selling, you know, before you are ready or comfortable to start doing it. Building and selling, building and selling. That's all you need to be doing throughout your week, right? Cool. Yeah, I mean, these are more food for thought. I can, let me see what else I have left here and see. I was gonna, you know, guide some folks through, but we could also do Q&A. Yeah, let me just actually read this. So yeah, do your customer discovery, do your customer identification, describe demographics, psychographics, what are their pain points, problems, motivators, and then think about, you know, those unmet needs and the pain points, and just like think about the opposite. You know, what would be the value? Like, how could I serve this pain point? What are the different, you know, ways I can go about that? Yeah, basically pain points, the opposite would be the solutions, right? And that's a great for a landing page. It's like, do you have these different problems? Here's what we do, boo, boo, boo. And you literally make it 1 for 1, make it so obvious to them. Like, you have this problem, here's what we do about it, you know, boom, right? Journey maps. So definitely draw it out, like from initial contact, what's going to happen, right? Planning for scrappy execution and proof of concept testing, right? Building tools where you don't have to code anything, like what can you build today? This is an example journey, right? Like user finds somebody on the website, or sorry, user finds us on our website. They schedule a demo call. We send something to their inbox, maybe an email, maybe a text, a confirmation, a calendar invite. Then we have a free phone call. We also send them a video before that phone call, right? And then they sign up, right? So figure out, like, you might run that free initial beta and then eventually we start charging. And then, what happens from there. The other interesting thing about all this is the funnel. Like you're going to measure, if everyone's on your website, but no one's clicking the button, why could that be? Is it not resonating? Is it not clear? If they're having the phone call, but then they're not converting, what's happening? So look at each stage of the funnel, what's happening and where are the breakdowns. And yeah, what's going to get measured, right? So I'm measuring number of views, number of calls, the attendance rate, the conversion rate, all that good stuff. So you're measuring at every single step to figure out what do I need to be doing differently and where are the breaks, where are the breakdowns, right? That is pretty much everything I have for today. There's so much more I could talk about, but I didn't want to kind of overload everything. So I tried to put, my main good thoughts to start with. I hope this, kicked off a lot of good food for thought. Anyone, want to share something in the chat that, they learned, or maybe next steps you're going to try out, or maybe a gap or something that you feel like you need to improve on with your business, or Q&A. I am happy to answer any and all questions that I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. It was a fantastic presentation, and thank you for taking us through the story of your company. As Rachel said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask directly.
Or yeah, feel free to share if there's
So,
something you're going to work on and share in the chat.
yeah, question for you,
We'll
Rachel.
keep it open, for Q&A for a few minutes, and I'm happy to hang out. And I guess if there's no Q&A, like we can wrap up, or Danny, you tell me. But yeah, if anybody's willing to share in the chat, like tell us thoughts, takeaways, next steps. What do you want to work on? What do you think is resonating with you? The piece I've been missing. Good, thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad it was helpful. And yeah, share with the group, like, what are you going to implement? Rebecca, I don't always send my slides, but we're recording this, so we'll send you the recording, and then of course you can see the slides that way too.
Rachel, I think in your journey, as you were sharing it, what were like one or two things that were unexpected as you were discovering the folks that you were working with that actually caused the shift in how you built the company?
Yeah. Let's see. Man. I think shifts over time. Well, definitely the college versus professionals. I mean, that was the biggest. They're so different, and like if you're trying to serve undergrads direct to consumer, like we all know, we've all been there. They don't usually have money. So, who's your paying customer and can they pay you? Right. And who is the biggest pain points? Like college students, just they had a different problem. Right. So that was the biggest shift where I was like, all right, I gotta now pivot, towards professionals. Other than that, I think, we still serve such a wide variety of people. I also feel like I see shifts just in the market and like people's needs. Like through COVID, so much was virtual and remote. We started offering group coaching, group co-working, texting and emailing. So I think the format of like how we got in touch and how we delivered our service and like what do people need, and I'm always thinking of new products and new ideas. And that's the thing. Like I think once you start getting your customers, you're listening to them. And if they have certain problems, like likely other people may as well. And so if I build out new products that I think are resonating with my current clients, we're going to just grow more, right? It's a little bit of that like sort of blue ocean strategy, right? Where it's product led. And so, in terms of other customer shifts, I'm trying to think out loud. For us, there's definitely the separation between a working professional versus somebody who's not working, right? And the pace and what does that look like and what level of service and level of effort. If somebody is all day, all week and they're job searching constantly versus, somebody that's doing this on the side of the job. So, we ended up creating different tiers, right? Like, do you want to chat with a coach weekly, bi-weekly, or once a month or once a quarter? So frequency, pacing, level of support based on the person, their time, how much they're devoting to this, so that persona and like what's going on in their life and what works, what is best. Some people just want, for example, our biweekly plan, it's like a healthy pace, but it's not like overkill. Some people are like, I need the overkill. I need you to be on my ass. I need you to be on top of me and, have that weekly touch point. And other people are like, the monthly, is amazing. And I check in, but I can be self-accountable. I go at my own pace. I'm really busy. I'm not really prioritizing, but I want to be on top of this, right? So the different needs and personas for the different tiers as well, is what we started to flesh out a bit. So I think those were kind of the biggest shifts, adding the group coaching and the co-working, I think based on people's needs as well. Yeah, the texting and the emailing. To be honest, a lot has been staying the same as of recent, because I feel like you finally hit that product market fit and we know what's working. But of course, there's always more that I want to add. Like anytime you see a pain point, I'm like, what can we do to help you solve this, right? And we almost just don't even have enough time to build all the things we want to build. So that's the problem you want to be in. But just start building any one product, because then you're going to learn and you're going to see, like, if they're using it, they're using it. If they're not using it, they're not using it. Like, you're going to literally just see those metrics quickly. And build, measure, learn. It should really, people talk about failing fast, learning quickly. So be aware of, like, how much data do I have and how long has this test been running, and like, am I ready to pivot away and adjust and adapt? And maybe, do I drop this thing altogether? Like, is this product or service not the thing? Being willing to let that baby go, like, that's hard. It is hard. But be willing, be open, use data, and have someone else who's not you who can help you, because yeah, whether it's like a person on your team or a product that's not working, whatever's not working, you want to know as fast as possible. But it is a balance of, like, have I given it enough time? So get another pair of eyes and ears if you're not sure. But yeah, you want to be willing to adapt as much as you can in those early days. And that's not easy. We have egos. We're very, it's tough to let things go. But just remember, if you believe in a certain mission, you can solve that mission. But it's like, is it in a different way, or is it a different customer? So still use your passion, but like, is this thing working the way I'm doing it right now? Or like, what do I need to do better and differently? Right. So don't feel like you have to let the passion go. It's just getting creative with, how I'm delivering it and who, right? If it's not resonating, or something's not working, that's actually your best information, right? So just separate, like, still keep that passion, but how can I adjust what I'm doing, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Super helpful, Rachel. We do have a question in the chat of, do you have thoughts on pricing models and niche? Some say it's better to start expensive and then gradually branch out because it's hard to raise prices
Yeah.
out there, but I've heard other arguments.
I don't know. I think it depends on your business, your market, the competition, your level of expertise. Like, are you doing, like, offering hourly services, or are you, like, building some innovative product? And I think it really depends. Like, if you're doing something really novel, you might need some free initial testers and beta testers, right, who pay nothing. Or if you're like, I have many years of experience and now I'm going to go consult, like, you're going to charge what you're worth. I think it depends on what the product is, what the service is, who you are, like, how novel is this, what's the market, and is this your differentiator? Like, for me, I love that we can be affordable, and that does well for us. And by the way, like, it's also a math question of, like, your choice, because there's a lot of coaches where, so say you have career coaching and you charge somebody $4,000 for this job search package or whatever, you're going to have probably less initial calls. And then it's like, maybe say you have 10 calls a month and 1 out of 10 converts. You want to do the math of, like, what does that mean for me and my business? Whereas for me, we have like 30 to 40, demo calls a month. We convert about 30% of those. I can do the math as to what that means for, like, average revenue per month, things like that. And so you can do the back of the napkin of, like, what do I think this looks like on paper, from a funnel perspective? And also, retention is part of your business model. So for us, our average retention is a little over 6 months. But if you're like, I'm having somebody sign up for the year, or I'm having somebody sign up for just a one-time service, that can play into the pricing, because it's like the frequency, the retention, right? Like, how often are you charging them, and whatnot. And there's tiers of service, right? That's what we do. So who wants your higher tier? Who wants your lower tier? That's another really good way to think about it. What else can I say? Those are the factors I would probably think about with pricing. Honestly, I would just, like, take time to, like, think about all those main factors, and then you sort of just, like, have to munge it all together and be like, okay, given everything I know, given what my business is, given what makes sense, like you sort of just like make a call. I wouldn't, and then again, it's testing. Because if you're like, people are going to my website and they're booking a call with me, and then they're not converting, maybe it is the price point. So you're gonna be able to pinpoint, right? And then if you see people start converting, you'll know, great, people are converting. Do I want to test the price increases? I've personally been able to increase prices. So when they say it's hard to increase prices, like we're talking about, Netflix, that people are up in arms because they're massive and they switch things up. I'm a bootstrap startup here. So when I change prices periodically, it's like fine, because new customers never knew my past pricing and my past customers are just grandfathered in. So like, I feel like for a small business, like it's okay. So yeah, it's a lot of factors of what you're looking at, I think. And you need to just like put them all together. And then like, that helps you sort of come with an answer, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Rachel. Heather, you have a follow-up as I jumped on? You good?
Thank you so much.
The one note that I will add on this in my own experiences learning, as you're building your price points, make sure that you're charging enough that you can pay yourself something.
Yes.
We do this.
And have another pair of eyes and ears, because like right. So I will tell you that as well. This was interesting. I think in the beginning I started charging based on like what my discretionary income was. Like, remember that your customer is not you, and what is their budget, and what do they pay for like competitive services, and then how do you differ from that? So yes, there's the business model and like, how can I pay myself? There's like, what is this worth? There's the differentiated factors. But yeah, like I did exactly what Danny said. Like I did the wrong thing, and so I definitely like undercharge, and we probably still undercharge, but that's also like, I do like to be affordable. But yeah, for a long time, I subconsciously was like, what would I pay for this? But like that, it's not you actually, it's who are they, and what is their budget, and what is their value on this, and what do they pay for other things? How does this differ, etc. So yeah, you have to really get outside of yourself. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much again for being with us. We appreciate Woken as a partner and the work that you all do. If you want to drop your email in the chat, while we close out,
please reach out to me. I am here to help. I know we're sort of branded as career development, but I do and have coached people who are starting their own thing, going from 0 to 1. If you want momentum, accountability, guidance, and just having a thought partner, I'm happy to kind of be there alongside you. I was a solo founder, still am. So if you need, just another pair of eyes and ears, do let me know. I'm happy to work with you and help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody again for joining us for a session today. Make sure to check out startout.org on our event section for any upcoming sessions. We will definitely be having Woken come back, and have a great rest of your day.